call the meeting to order, please. This is the Village of Riverside agenda for continued public hearing on the proposed creation of Harlem Avenue Business District Number 2 and the adoption of a business district plan for proposed Harlem Avenue Business District Number 2. Ms. Haley, please call the roll. Ms. Haley?
President Sells.
Here.
Trustee Hannon.
Here.
Trustee Peters.
Here.
Trustee Pollock.
Here.
Trustee Evans.
Here.
Trustee Gallegos.
Here.
Trustee Tisa.
Here.
Village Manager Francis. Here. Village Attorney Mars.
Here.
Community Development Director App.
Here.
Also present Village Clerk Haley.
Thank you very much. Director Apt, if you'll please do the publication of public hearing notice.
Yes, the publication of the public notice was posted in the paper on March 11th, 2020 and March 18th, 2020 in the Riverside Brookfield landmark per the state statute requirements, and we have a copy of the certificate of publication in your packets.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have the presentation on the proposed creation of the Harlem Avenue Business District 2 and a proposed district plan for District 2. And this presentation will also include the next public hearing item, which is District Number 3. And we have with us tonight from Kane McKenna, Phil McKenna. So, Mr. McKenna, welcome this evening.
Hi.
And please, whenever you're ready.
It's a whole new world.
It is indeed a whole new world.
These are two proposed TIF districts along Harlem Avenue, and since the characteristics are the same with both, I would go through both of them in the same manner with a couple of exceptions. The village will recall that there's an existing business district along Harlem Avenue on the far left. There's a proposed new business district number 2, which is the subject of this public hearing, which basically goes along Harlem on the west side from Shenstone down to Lawton and over Burlington to Del Plain. Proposed business district at Ogden, at Harlem and Ogden is shown in the third slide. What is a business district all about? It's a contiguous area in which it's determined that some rehabilitation, some public improvements need to take place in order to keep businesses viable. The area after designation usually is subject to a sales tax. Also could be hotel tax, but that's not applicable in this case. The sales tax cannot exceed 1% total, and it would be imposed in increments of 1/4 of 1%. There's a term blighted area with respect to the designation of such a district. What does a blighted area really mean? It means that there's factors that retard housing or constitute economic or social liability. That's really the one we're geared toward here. Economic underutilization of the area and a potential menace to health, welfare, and safety. So we've got, in these areas, we find inadequate street layout, basically because it's old. It does not accommodate modern day commercial activities. We did not find any unsafe or unsanitary conditions. We did, with respect to Business District Proposed 3, find some site improvements that were deteriorated. But we did in both areas find that there's an improper subdivision, obsolete platted. So basically the area was platted not for the modern day traffic considerations that are there now. We did not find any conditions which endanger life or property. It's important to note that the factors are for the area as a whole. They're not adjudications in any manner on any particular businesses within the area. It's not only the structures that are there, but also the getting in and out of the structures, the fact that it's difficult to have parking there, it's difficult to have truck loading and unloading at docks there. Those are the kinds of factors that go into this determination. What happens if you have a business district? Well, you have an additional sales tax of up to 1%. It doesn't apply to any titled items. It doesn't apply to groceries in the same way that existing taxes don't apply to certain groceries items that are for unprepared foods. Doesn't apply to prescriptions or medical equipment. If adopted, it would start being collected by the state through the state's normal mechanism on January 1st. The two examples there are just for a retail calculation and a restaurant calculation. We're talking about what is the difference in terms of the sales tax paid by the consumer. With the additional sales tax of business district, an item of $10 would go up by 10 cents. The same with respect to the example of the restaurant, which since you have a places of eating tax on that, it'd go from $10 to $11.20. If you extrapolate from that, you can see it's not a huge additional tax on any particular resident or any particular purchase.
Mr. McKenna, can I pause you just for a second? I made an error. I need to swear you in, and it just dawned on me that I need to swear you in for the public hearing. So if you could raise your right hand, please, and anyone else who's intending to give testimony could raise their right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're giving this evening is true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
That's okay. That's fine. So why does the municipality even consider a business district? Well, it allows certain underutilized businesses or commercial areas to become more viable. One of the things that you use a business district for is rehabilitation funds. Small business comes in, says, we'd like to do some expansion, we'd like to do some rehab of our building because it's old, then there's the opportunity to use business district funds to help that retailer out. You can direct for land uses, all subject to existing planning and zoning. There's nothing that says unless there's any special treatment with respect to the planning and zoning procedures that a village normally follows. You can do public improvements and private improvements with the hotel tax, with the sales tax in this case. And among the improvements you might consider, at our suggestion, would be parking in the area. Could you do things to increase the parking opportunities? You can remain competitive in an increasing marketplace that's very difficult. And the creation of the business district does not negatively impact any other taxing district. This is not like a tax increment finance district, where property taxes paid get shifted from one particular jurisdiction to another. This is a tax that is imposed solely within the confines of the retailers within the particular business district area. It's collected by the state of Illinois in the normal collections, and then it's remitted to the village on a quarterly basis. The village then keeps track of that in a separate fund. Can't be mixed with the general fund, can't be used for any other purposes other than within the particular business district. There is an accounting and a full audit of the business district annually as well. Some communities that have considered business districts, most of these have been adopted, some of them are in process right now, but you'll notice some western suburban ones in Elmwood Park, LaGrange Park, Lombard, River Forest, and obviously you have one yourselves. So they've been both used in larger areas and smaller areas. I think the one in River Forest is one of the smallest ones that I know. It's right along the lake in Lathrop in connection with the new developments there. What are the costs that are eligible for funding? Studies, surveys, plans, property assembly, including acquisition. I think that would apply in the instance here of additional parking. If there were lots available that could ease the parking constraints, they could be acquired. Site preparation, including any clearance or removal of existing structures, any infrastructure improvements. Maybe more importantly, and most importantly in terms of discussions with staff, is renovation of existing improvements and fixtures. Now, either through grants or loans, a program set up to the village, funded by the business district tax, can be made available to the existing businesses. Construction of buildings is permissible. Financing cost and relocation cost are also permissible. The designation process. Well, there was already passed by the board an ordinance proposing the approval of the business district plan. I do want to state the business district plan that I went over that night before the board had an error in my presentation with respect to the budget. The budget is slightly over $15 million with respect to business district 2 and slightly over $5 million with respect to business district number 3. And that's contained in the plans themselves. So that business district plan has been put on file, it's been considered. As Sonia pointed out, notices have already appeared. Public hearings are tonight. If the board decides to go through with that, they would pass ordinances approving the business district plan and designating the business district sales tax. An ordinance would be passed with respect to that regard, and the next available date for collection from the Department of Revenue would be January 1st. Just a quick note on District Number 2, the length of the TIP district, the current uses, food, dining, retail, office, residential, mixed uses. This is not a proposal to change any of those uses whatsoever, but to complement and supplement those uses. We found this one had economic liability by virtue of improper subdivision, obsolete planning. You can see how small the plats are as they currently exist, and defective and inadequate, non-existent street layout. I'm sure that you all know better than I do the difficulties of turning in and out, particularly if you're trying to turn on Harlem Avenue. This is the Ogden Harlem. Would you like me to go?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
This is the northwest corner of Harlem and Ogden, going west on Ogden. Current uses are food and dining, retail, office. This is a particular area in all our visits out we found was very much in need of some more parking in order to spark activity there. So there is the same non-existent or inadequate street layout. There was some deterioration of some site improvements here, and I believe this is also where the B of A facility is vacant as well. These are not, findings that are saying that anything is wrong with the businesses there. It's that what can you do to get them up to 2020 standards in terms of producing more revenue for themselves as well as the village. So tonight we're at the public hearing. After the public hearing, there'd be consideration of the ordinances, and then the deadline in terms of filing. State has 2 deadlines a year. In order to make the January collections, it would need to be filed by October 1st. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. If you can just stand by, please. Director Abt, do you have testimony you would like to add?
Yes, I will just add to that. Mr. McKenna kind of went over the plan and the designation, but I do want to say that this public hearing is also in regards to adopting that business district tax. So in addition to designating the districts, you're considering the additional sales tax that's allowed by the state statute. As he mentioned, it can be adopted in 0.25% increments, not to exceed 1%. We did adopt the full 1% sales tax for Harlem Avenue Business District Number 1 that's located up at Harlem and Long Common. Staff does recommend adopting the full 1% tax for the new districts to be consistent and fair with our other areas. Also, the sales tax is not applied to certain items such as groceries or other unprepared foods, titled or registered personal property such as an automobile, or prescriptions and medical equipment, just to kind of clarify a little bit about what that sales tax could be applied to. So I also wanted to note that Mr. McKenna and I did hold an informational open house meeting. We did have to do it via Zoom on May 26th. To provide some information about our business districts and the village's goals and objectives and answer any questions they might have. We did have 2 participants who asked a few questions related to the village's interest in purchasing or acquiring property, and also about the application of the tax. So we do have 90 days from conducting the public hearing to adopt the ordinances establishing the business district and the additional tax. If the board pleases, we can put that on the next meeting in June for adoption, if that's the way you want to proceed.
Thank you, Director Abt. Trustees, any questions for either Mr. McKenna or Director Abt on Business District 2? Mr. Hannon?
And I'm sure at some point I knew this. This District Number 2 looks like it comes down Burlington Street and appears to cover only the south side of Burlington, and just wanted to understand the rationale for not including the north side.
A large portion of the north side is residential as apartment buildings or townhomes, and so I don't believe we included those particular areas. So we kind of tried to follow where the commercial buildings were on Burlington.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Other questions from the trustees? Mr. Gisa, Mr. Gallegos, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Gallegos? Mr. Gallegos?
I apologize, I had you on mute. No questions here.
Thank you very much. Did we have any communications from the public on this item?
I have not received any comments from the public.
Okay. Hearing no further comments, I would ask for a motion and a second to adjourn the public
Did
hearing.
we want to double check if anybody out in the,
Would you like to step out and see if there's anybody that has a comment? We just got notice from Mr. Buckley that there is no one outside here on this issue.
just grab the Okay, nope, nobody out there.
Okay. Thank you, Director App, for that. So hearing no further questions or comments, Mr. McKenna, if you can just hang in there. I would ask for a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing on Business District Number 2.
So moved.
By Ms. Peters. Second. By Mr. Hannan. Please call the roll.
Trustee Hannan.
Aye.
Trustee Peters.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Trustee Giza.
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.